Welcome to IMAGI-NATION TV, Week 19, Episode 90. Today, we are being joined by some rockstar mentors from our We Imagine special on hoodie economics. I am Olivia Anderson in Year 12 at Pymble Ladies College. What I imagine within the next 10 years to help us all create a fairer world is that every child worldwide will have access to a better education. What I want to get out of hosting today is learn about some amazing people and how they got to where they are now. Over to you, Jack.
Yeah, thanks, Leila. We're today talking about the world that we imagine in the next decade, and we're doing a special couple of weeks focusing as we zero in on our 10th year of Hoodie Day. So this is our 10th hoodie that we've created, and we've got some dreams on the back. One of the things that we're imagining is zero waste houses in 10 years. We're imagining a world where we've worked out complicated supply chains with fashion, and we've found a way to make it more sustainable. We're imagining a world where kids don't go into a classroom and feel like they're not spoken to. That teachers have worked out how to unlock their imagination to expand their horizons so they can gather kids' minds outside the margins. And as we come together and imagine the world we want to build, today we're talking about economics, which might seem a little bit strange considering we're going to combine that concept with this hoodie that I'm wearing. And one of the things that we've seen over 16 years has been people coming to engage with AIM and behaving in a certain way, and then the hoodie becoming an exchange for that. And often it's not a commercial exchange that you traditionally see of paying $69 or $100 to wear a garment. And the behaviors have changed. We have a volunteer mentor that would volunteer 100 hours and then they'd get a hoodie, or a student who will suddenly complete high school when they never would have, and then they get a hoodie as a reward. Different people have engaged in different ways, and we're going to catch up with a good friend of AIM's and a good friend of mine, Tom Tilley, on the other side of this We Imagine Hoodie Day video to talk about his experience wearing an AIM hoodie and the behavioural change either side of it or around it, or what this garment's doing. And then we're going to wrap with our panel about economics and the role of be a central role in creating this fairer world over the next decade. So we'll throw this video quickly and then we'll swing back with Tom on the other side. Tom, we've danced around ideas in different forms and different spaces for over a decade now, and from being in university around a similar time to trying to make sense of the world. And what I've really admired about you and your mind is you can be complex and move into different spaces, from fashion to music to politics to economics, and try and understand all of it. What role have you seen fashion play in changing behaviour as someone who's been really connected to youth culture over a decade plus?
Well, fashion's an interesting one. People have changed the way they buy fashion. I think it sort of is an important part of how they shop and what they buy. So one thing that's happened is people have looked for old, secondhand, vintage, however you want to describe it, ways of dressing themselves and looking the way they want to look and expressing themselves, but doing it with stuff that's already there. And that's great. And then also seen other people, and myself sometimes lean into this really cheap stuff that you can buy and can be really disposable. So there's those sort of sustainable considerations and changes people are making with their clothes, but on a deeper level, they represent who we are as people and the way we feel and the way we want to be seen out in the world. And I find that's a really interesting choice that people make every day.
What is this hoodie that you're wearing? Can you tell us a bit about that and where it came
from? So can you see?
Let's talk. Yeah.
So this hoodie was a gift from Jack, from you, and Jack gave this to me last year at the end of my time hosting a radio show on Triple J for 8 years. So they were 8 pretty important years. And actually, hang on a sec, I'll tell you exactly what's on the back here. Jack detailed, basically summed my career up in numbers. 8 years as host, 48,000 minutes on air, 3,000 interviews, 7,000 witty callback responses, and 8 kilograms of hair gel. So this hoodie actually tells my story, or my career story, at least from the last few years. So Jack surprised me. You surprised me with this in December last year on my last show.
Yeah, it's been part of what we're working on is how we can have the hoodie be, yes, something that people can buy, but that's when it's at its weakest, when it's connected, I think, to behavior and big commitments and contributions to society and to advancement, and hopefully making a world a better place. And he definitely did that at 8 years as a journalist and continue to do it as a journalist. So thank you for joining us today to wrap on your hoodie experience. And yeah, we're looking forward to catching up with our panel afterwards. So thanks, Tom, for joining the show.
All right. See you later, guys. Have a good day.
All right, let's jump into our panel now. We've got a quick video that's going to introduce them, and then we'll see our amazing group on the other side. Olivia, how are you going? You having a good time?
Amazing time. So good.
Right. Get your questions ready. See you on the other side. Okay, we're here with our panel today. We've got Fanny joining us, we've got James joining us, and Leila. Fanny, we'll go to you early because we know it's late over in New York, so we're going to give you the early first hit off to get the show going. I want to know what is the most interesting fashion item you've seen that's changed behavior in your time of looking at stories and culture, and yeah, what's a symbol that has really shifted things beyond the cloth itself?
That's a tough question. Are you talking about the item, like a clothing item?
Yeah, something that you've seen.
I think maybe the sneaker would be an interesting item. It used to be only for performance, and then it became kind of convenient. And now it's almost in some places and with some brands and with some people, it's a statement about luxury, about who you are, about what you care about, and it's also a piece of art. Lately, Christie's, I think it was Christie's, sold a Michael Jordan sneaker for like I don't even remember the amount, but it was definitely not the price of a regular sneaker. So I would say probably the sneaker would be my number one item.
Leila, do you have much historical knowledge around clothing and our journey with clothing? I've sort of been starting to dig into it, and I'm just interested, when did we start to engage with fashion and have it as a connective tissue to our skin?
Absolutely no idea. Sorry, but I really don't know about that. I guess from my perspective, what I've, when I look at the history of fashion, what it shows to me is an interpretation of, I think Tom was saying, it's an interpretation of people's personalities, who they are, and an expression of creativity. But it also really tells a story about the era we're living in, and the culture that we're in, and the politics even.
Olivia, you're wearing an Imagination hoodie, and you've just successfully applied and become our first CEO for good, which means I think you're going to go out and raise funds to try and support other kids who don't necessarily get that educational opportunity that we can go and mentor in different ways. What does that hoodie mean to you when it links with behavior, or does it mean anything, or is it just is it just something that sort of sits on the side, or has it got extra meaning because you're going to behave in a certain way when you're wearing it?
I would say wearing this hoodie is pretty important. It means that I'm connected to a group, and it means that I kind of have this belonging. So it's really just like another part of me, if you get what I mean. Like, it gives me an opportunity to go out and have the confidence to do something that I might not have done before.
Where are we? This is an open question for the panel. What is the future of the way that we operate economically? How are we, in terms of purchasing and engaging, what's your sense as you're looking at COVID reorganization of the world and the way economies are moving? What are some trends, some ways that marketing and story are going to be engaging? And yeah, what's your sense as people that have got a finger on the pulse around what customers might be wanting and what we can actually do? What's possible with the challenges of sustainability, with the challenges of huge, supply chains being disrupted and not having what we used to have in that framework, and maybe more knowledge around what a product looks like. What's the future of the way we engage with products? Open question, off you go.
Okay, I'll take that one. I guess, things have to change. As far as I'm concerned, things have to change. The way we lead has to change. The way we deal with our industry, the fashion industry, and the way we consume in particular have to change because it's not sustainable in any way for the human race, for the planet, and even economically, it's actually not sustainable. So if you want to talk about economics, there's a need at the moment to be unbelievably adaptable for business. For example, if you think about Melbourne, what's going on in Melbourne right now, stores that have reopened from a retail perspective, let's just say, and then they thought, okay, oh, here we go, we're going back, and then boom, we close again. So I think we need to be in a mind frame as businesses saying everything can change every day. Plan A is this, plan B is this, plan C is this. And be super agile. It's super hard, I think. It's very hard. It's like being an actor that's kind of at a play and you start to improvise. And that's basically what you need to do. You need to improvise. But I think attached to that is a lot of creativity. You can actually deal with that in a positive way by being adaptive and make sure your teams are really able to transition from different roles at different times.
Yeah, and to add to that, to the creative kind of angle, there's also tools that we have now that we didn't have to use, like we didn't have before. So technology is a big one, and I think that's going to help creativity. It's going to kind of like accelerate creativity and transition, because people are now more in ownership of their destiny because of technology. So of course it has its downside, but it is so far a net positive. And I would say also the other thing that we have now that maybe was not as widespread before is information and meaning. And I think that right now, because thanks to technology, actually the idea of like, a brand that has a mission or a brand that has meaning and does things for good it's easier to spread the word. It's easier for the customer to know that these brands exist and that these items exist and that they have a right to choose, and they can choose, they can vote with, their dollars. So I think those are huge differences with, the past, and they are, I hope, going to change everything.
Can I also just add to that? I think that, brands or businesses that don't move into what the future is going to look like are going to get left behind. And I think COVID has sped that process up. What we're seeing is that, consumers are now being much more conscious with the way they're spending the money. And yes, part of that might mean that they're looking for something cheaper because they're concerned about what next week looks like or the future looks like. But what we're seeing as a brand is that consumers are actually spending more as well. They're aligning with brands that align with their own values. And so I think brands that don't know who they are or why they exist on a much deeper level than just because I love creating product are going to really suffer in the future. But I think another really massive change that we need to see, and not just within the fashion industry, but across all industry, is the way we measure success. So in particular, economic success. What we see happening generally is that we measure the success by the profit that's collected in the country that collects the profit versus how this impacts our entire system, ecosystem within a brand. And that means the countries that we get our raw materials from. And beyond just the economic measure of that, into the social measure and the environmental measure. And when we start measuring these three things, we're going to get a much greater indication of what brands are actually sustainable. And I would probably suggest that you might find that there's some very big, well-known brands out there in the world, again, not just within the fashion industry, that actually aren't sustainable at all. What they're actually doing is they're taking a resource from another area and putting it into another area and calling that profit. But it's not profit at all. So I think that there's some big shifts, and I think that the climate out there right now is just enhancing and making this happen much more rapidly.
Got a few big ideas to dig into there. We've got a couple of comments coming in from the chat line. Tom Wensley saying, Olivia Anderson bossing it from the start. It's not black and white, saying, I'm making a commitment not to buy any new clothes for the remainder of 2020. Taran Mark saying, fast fashion and unethical behavior is not going to last. That's a hunch. This is a simple question, which I don't know the answer to, so hopefully you can all help me. What is economics in 2 sentences as a response? So open to the whole panel. Olivia, you go first. What is economics?
Look, to be completely honest, I wouldn't know how to display what economics is. To me, it just sounds like pretty much what your money is going into, I guess. I'm not really sure.
That's a good start. That's 2 sentences. Fanny, what do you think?
Well, for me, it's more like the, I mean, it goes along what you've been saying, Olivia. It's about the flux, or like the movement of energy and money and resources. So yeah, it's 1 sentence, I guess.
James, Leila?
Yeah, look, I agree with Fanny. Who could disagree with that? It's the movement of money and energy. It's all our resources that create our economy and how that moves around.
I'm cheating here. I've just quickly Googled the Wikipedia definition, and it says economics is the social science that studies the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. But all joking aside, I've actually got a degree in economics, and I should know the definition. When I think of economics, though, I do think of the exchange of goods and services, like everyone else is saying. And I think it's, in a way, it's together with cultural and societal sciences keeps us moving. So without the exchange of goods and services, we just stop functioning as a society.
Yeah, there's a couple of really fascinating doorways that would just open up there. I think energy is a framework in terms of measuring an exchange of energy. I don't know if we have a measurement system that captures that. There's Bhutan's got the happiness index, which is one framework of looking at measuring an output. And that's what's been fascinating for us, sort of delving into a world of exchange, is we have people giving their time and often committing to changing their behavior dramatically. From people in positions of power, governments, businesses, leaders, people in Olivia's shoes, at a private school in Sydney, saying, I want to use what I've got to then share that with other people, and then through to kids shifting their mindsets, teachers shifting their mindsets, and pulling themselves out of like mass inequity and challenges. And we've had this garment as a way of kind of, probably not incentivizing, because that feels cheap, but almost an exchange, a currency exchange, to say, okay, you've created all of this change. Here is this, and this is what we think is a valuable economic tool that can maybe measure some of that energy and that cultural change that's happening. And that's where I think it becomes really fascinating. I love watching when Mandela walked onto Ellis Park to put on a Springbok jersey, which previously had been this symbol of the symbol of really pre-apartheid or apartheid South Africa, and a predominantly white symbol. And Mandela, as the first black president, puts on this jersey. That's a huge cultural statement, and that didn't cost it. I'm sure he didn't pay $80 for the jersey from a vendor in the stadium. This was about saying something and putting something on. And I think that is such a fascinating challenge we've got. We've got automation on the rise. Technology has been fantastic for sharing information. We might not have jobs, in the way that we used to, and maybe employment isn't going to be as critical a role for us in 30, 40 years. We might get a universal basic income as a way of engaging and exchange. So yeah, I'm fascinated by the role fashion can play in driving some of that shift in economic value and exchange, because my definition of economics is it's the exchange between each other. And the question is, do we measure, to James's point, which I'll come back to you all on and just open it up again. Yeah, how do we measure that impact on the earth, on other animals, on our own well-being, and on the energy that we give to each other? And definitely fast fashion sort of doesn't take that into account as a framework. And what are you guys doing? What are the questions you're asking yourselves as you think about the way you want to design and work with people to maybe build a more fairer system, or be relevant even as economies sort of shift in the next 5-10 years?
I think, look, at the end of the day, you've got to be able to come back and question yourself on how you would want to treat, if we start with people, your own family, your own friends, how would you want them to be treated? And so we start to build this system that treats everybody fairly from the very beginning to the very end. Not a system where we can put our head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist, or pretend we don't know about it. I mean, it's not good enough anymore in today's day and age, with the amount of exposure that exploitation across all supply chains has had, to wonder if it's there. I mean, we've got to do more. We've got to look for it. We've got to find and identify these kinds of issues within supply chain. So that's a social level. And then how you measure that. You raised a great point, Jack. Your hoodie is a great example of something that can measure, social value, or having these benefits to the people that wear it and beyond. It raises conversation. People can communicate it. It raises issues to talk about. So that's one thing, I think. But then going into environmental, I mean, there's so much tech out there now that needs more funding, because it's incredible what people have been able to create to start to measure some environmental measures, where is a product creating a positive or a negative impact? And if it's creating a negative impact, then how do we change that? I always use the example of Richard Branson. I think he's a really amazing man, and he's got this incredible vision that he's been able to see come to fruition. And one of those things is building a rocket to fly to the moon. I mean, who even thinks about doing something like that? Yet he does. Yet he was able to achieve something as crazy as that, is to actually build this machine. I know it's got issues, but the reality is he built it. And so, but we can't solve some of these most simple social and environmental issues that we face on a daily level. The reason we can't solve those things is because inherently we've built a system that doesn't think about the rest of our supply chain. We've measured for a very long time only one of the measures, but that's all changing. And those who don't move with it won't be here to reap the benefits either.
I agree 100%. I think what we're missing is having human centricity, or humane centricity actually, as the priority. Too often and for so long, money has actually been the priority, whether we like it or not. Every single time, if you look at what every single company ends up measuring as the most important, and I'm not talking about your brand, James, because I know that's very different there. It's so refreshing to see that you're one of the few brands, really fashion brands, that really measures people and planet, and of course you need to measure economic viability, because if you don't have a business, what can you do? But why is it still that it's okay for us to pay someone 70 cents an hour, or even up to $3 an hour to make clothes for us to just buy and wear for one day and chuck, for example? So there's some really fundamental flaw, I think, at the moment in the world. And I don't know why we got here, but I really hope that together we can all, work towards changing this.
There's also a slowdown currently thanks to, or like because of COVID, whichever way you want to look at it, there's a slowdown across, the globe, and it brings people in front of themselves. It brings a lot of questioning, and it brings a lot of like reflecting on people's value. But it's interesting because there is obviously, there's this friction between, money and meaning, and it's been going on for probably ever. I mean, since the invention of money. But right now, because we're all isolated, there is this thing where we're like in front of a mirror, and so there's no escape. I mean, you can watch TV, but it only takes you so far. So you're in front of yourself. You have to revalue everything, and values are like right here. And it's the ideal moment, and you can, I mean, I live in the States, and you can see it here on the streets, right? Like the protests and all of that. That's because of that. That's because people are looking at their values and thinking, wait a minute, like, especially here in New York, like profit is everything. Maybe not. Maybe lives matter, and certain people life matters, and so there's that. I think that this is a good for a bad, but something is happening right now, and that's super encouraging. There's a conscious that's coming up.
Yeah, I love conversations like this. I love complexity. I think the more that we're engaging in trying to understand the different systemic levers at play, the greater our chance is to design the worlds that we're trying to hope for and build them. So one of the things practically we're going to try and have a go at is we're going to look at whether we can build a case around hoodie economics. And so what does this look like as one case study? And then maybe we can pull out 8 or 9 other case studies of organizations around the world that are doing fascinating things. We had a comment from the chat line from Erman, who I think is in Kenya, saying, what would we use around a sustainability responsibility index? There's lots of work, as you said, James, already being done. So being able to highlight that and bring that to life, I think one thing that we can help do is bring together complexity across different industries, so it's not done in silos. So maybe we can get a group like KPMG and work with Fashion Council here and work with another few different brands around the world and try and see if we can do something which is complex, because when I think the economy, stupid. The economy is seemingly everything. So it means we have to cast a web as wide as we can if we want to look at complex ways to re-engineer economic values. And I would love for us to find a system in a way that we can measure energy, that we can measure imagination perhaps as an imagination index and see what that does for creation and invention and look at those different things. So we might pick up that conversation offline. And if there's anybody who's watching the show that wants to be a part of it, maybe we can look at a research project into hoodie economics and then build a case around some of these questions we've been asking. So we walk the talk as well, and we don't just talk about it in a show, but we actually kind of try and do something that can shift the system. So if you're all up for that, we might try and see if we can play in that space and look into economics, up our definition of what economics is. Hey, thanks for joining us, Fanny, James, and Leila. It was great having you on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jack. Pleasure as always.
Thanks a lot. That was fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're gonna jump to a quick video now called Cogs, which we made 4 years ago to talk about the complexity in the world and how some people get left behind, and think about how we can re-engineer different systems by jumping off the train tracks that we're on, and see if we can break free of those and then bring other people with us and create some new train tracks. So we'll check out Cogs, and then we'll have a quick wrap up with Olivia at the end of the show to reflect on today's show.
Here I am. dreamed that one day I would find you on my way. Maybe one day, maybe today.
Olivia, thank you for being our first CEO for Good and for throwing your hand back to bring people with you. And we hope that the other CEOs for Good who are watching this show and seeing what you're doing, take that opportunity to help us start to redesign the way the world works and hopefully have a fairer share of it all for everybody. So thank you for what you're doing and thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you.
Good on you. All right, that wraps up IMAGI-NATION TV today. We're back tomorrow, 12 Australian Eastern Standard Time. And we've got heaps of people coming on, and then we've got a show on Friday, and then we're going to keep rocking on this theme of We Imagine over the course of the next 7 shows. So looking forward to hanging out with you all. Take care of yourselves, and let's work on how we can design this world that we're dreaming of. We'll see you all tomorrow.